Hello and welcome to the Consistory of the Coelc YouTube channel. I'm your host for this video, Reverend Zabel of St John's Evangelical Lutheran Church, located in Dalby, Queensland, Australia. This is a YouTube channel for the Consistory of the Coelc, and on this channel we have our mini-series Ask the Consistory, where we answer questions. Today I'm speaking on the topic of the Rite of Confirmation. So the question we are addressing is, what is confirmation? So the Rite of Confirmation comes from three different Bible verses. The first comes from Acts 8 verse 17. In Acts chapter 8, Philip the evangelist had established a new congregation amongst the Samaritans. He had baptized them into the Christian faith. In verses 14 to 17, the apostles Peter and John came from Jerusalem and laid hands on these new Christians, bestowing on them also the Holy Spirit. Later also in Acts 19 we have the Apostle Paul, who came across disciples of John the Baptist who had started their own congregation in Ephesus. And Paul baptized them into the Trinitarian baptism, and then after this he laid on them hands and bestowed on them the Holy Spirit. These two incidents serve as the origins of the Rite of Confirmation, and you can see this particularly if you get Martin Chemnitz's Enchiridion, where he discusses the topic of confirmation, and he will quote these two verses as the proof text for the Rite of Confirmation. After the resurrection, Jesus instructed the apostles to go forth and to teach everything that he had taught them. In Acts 2:24 it states that the new believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, and in 1 John 1:3 the apostle John declares that in order to have fellowship with Christ, you had to have fellowship with his apostles. Therefore, when new congregations emerged, which were not directly planted by the apostles, the practice was established in which the apostles would examine these new congregations and to confirm that they held to the true teachings of Christ and his apostles. This was normally also followed by an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. The reformer Martin Chemnitz says that it was the prerogative of the apostles to confirm doctrine. He also adds that the outpouring of the Holy Spirit connected with this Rite of Confirmation is only a temporary thing that existed with the apostles and ended at the age of the apostles. That goes more into the doctrine of cessationism, which you can go check out my video on that where I discuss that in more detail. But referring back to the Rite of Confirmation, Peter and John confirmed the Samaritans who were baptized by Philip, and Paul then confirmed the Ephesians. Now the third Bible verse that speaks of the Rite of Confirmation is Hebrews 6:2. In Hebrews 6:1 and 2, the author speaks about moving beyond your basic elementary doctrines of Christ and moving into your more in-depth doctrines for the mature Christian. Here the author then gives a list of doctrines that were considered to be basic doctrines of the Christian faith. And they are listed as baptism, the laying on of hands, the resurrection from the dead, and eternal judgment. Scholars have believed that this reference to the laying on of hands was a reference to confirmation and not ordination, which has shown that confirmation was established as an essential rite then in the early church. Now, in Roman Catholicism, confirmation is considered a sacrament. It is also separated from the sacrament of Holy Communion, in which a person will publicly confirm that their faith is orthodox. So in Catholicism, you'll normally have something like your baptism, then later when a kid is about 7, they'll have reconciliation, also known as first confession, is where they go to confession absolution for the first time. Then when they're about 12, 13, they'll have their first communion, and then when they're about 16 or so, they'll do confirmation. It's at that point that they take responsibility for their own faith and confirm that they are in agreement with the wider congregation and the wider Church Catholic. Now, Lutherans do confirmation very differently. In the Apology of the Augsburg Confession, Philip Melanchthon declares that confirmation is not a sacrament since it has no express command from God or a clear promise of grace. It's not a means of grace, therefore it's not a sacrament. In the Treatise on the Power and Primacy of the Pope, Melanchthon also refers to confirmation as an apostolic tradition. Historically, Lutherans have retained this apostolic rite of confirmation, but we've connected it directly with the sacrament of Holy Communion. The purpose of confirmation was to give a public confirmation of the faith of the individual, to confirm that their faith was orthodox and in agreement with the teachings of their church. In Acts 4:32, the church is described as those who believed being of one heart and one soul. In 1 Corinthians 1:10, St. Paul appeals to the church at Corinth that they all agree and that there would be no divisions among them, but that they would be united in the same mind and same judgment. And in Philippians 2:2, Paul urges the church of Philippi to be of the same mind, being in full accord and of one mind. Thus, Lutherans have retained the historic practice of closed communion, in which we only welcome to our communion rail those who confess the same faith as us. The Augsburg Confession also says that the custom has been retained among us of not administering the sacrament to those who have not previously been examined and absolved. Therefore, in Lutheranism, we have this practice of publicly examining and confirming individuals before they are welcomed to commune at our altar. Therefore, we will perform the rite of confirmation to confirm that this person is in agreement with our teachings and that they are welcome then to come and commune at our altar. That is the Lutheran position on the rite of confirmation. Hope that answers the question, and join us again next time when we answer another question for you. I'm being your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.